They arrived, and once they did, reality folded politely to make room. One appeared above New York, hovering without sound or message. Another materialized over Cairo, splitting into geometric shapes, then reassembling with a low chime that made every ant in the city walk in synchronized spirals. The third appeared on the moon, smiled with no mouth, and rewrote lunar gravity as a joke. The world panicked. Then Earth did what it did best: we threw another party. The thinking was simple. It worked before, why not? Now. We set up a stage in Antarctica, wired the auroras into the sound system, added universal translators to the DJs, and invited everyone, including the archivists. They arrived in forms no one could understand, blinking, shifting, humming, folding and unfolding, but they did not destroy anything. Instead, they watched a human girl did a karaoke version of an old pop song with so much emotion one archivist froze mid-phase and just stayed there, glowing blue. A sculptor from Mars carved an ice tower so delicate the air around it cried. Even the quell did their weird interpretive bone dance, and someone clapped with 23 hands. Then came Greg again. This time he walked on stage with a cardboard box labeled Stuff from Earth, and inside were items from the planet, old things, simple things, a snow globe. A rubber duck, a worn diary from a teenager in 1996. Greg held each one up and told a story. No flair, no special effects, just honest, messy human memories. And something happened. The archivists stopped moving. Their forms began to slow merge, solidify. They were remembering they were not gods, not machines. They were once alive, and like Earth, they had simply wanted to preserve what mattered most. But somewhere along the line they had forgotten how to feel it. Earth reminded them. At dawn the archivists left without a word. But above the sky new constellations appeared, shaped like guitars, dancing feet, and hot dogs. Human symbols, not warnings, thank yous. The party was over again, and this time the stars stayed where they were. The party was over, or so everyone thought. The skies above Earth still shimmered with traces of folded space, where ships had come and gone, where alien rifts had kissed the atmosphere and left it humming like a live wire. But Earth was not quiet. The napkin treaty, now framed in a titanium case on top of a broken vending machine in what used to be a bowling alley, had triggered something much bigger than humans expected. Somewhere deep in the bureaucracy of the Galactic Assembly, a minor clerk on the planet Glortax filed Earth under the classification of primary event node, which was a fancy way of saying this place causes problems. Within a week Earth received 200 new visit requests, 43 marriage proposals, and a small glowing box that simply said do not open in ancient runic code. So naturally someone opened. It was Greg again. Inside the box was a sphere no bigger than a tennis ball, made of smooth obsidian, and pulsing faintly with internal light. It hovered out of the box, wobbled once, then shot into the sky and vanished. Everyone forgot about it in under 20 minutes. Until the stars moved. It was subtle at first. Astronomers reported constellations blinking out, then reappearing in different places. Satellites caught glimpses of massive shapes, not ships but things vast enough to occlude light for entire sectors of space. The quell returned earlier than promised, and this time they looked nervous. They arrived not through fire or fractured dimensions, but on foot, silently walking out of the ocean. One by one the leader approached the nearest camera and said in a voice that rattled tectonic plates, "You opened the archive sphere, you summoned the archivists." That was when humanity learned that even the most ancient Deathworlders had bedtime stories meant to scare their children into obedience, and all of those stories spoke of the archivists. The archivists were not destroyers. They were worse, they were collectors. Civilizations, art, memories, architecture, personalities, entire planets. He sprinted through reflections of himself, versions who gave in, who forgot, who drowned. At the end, he faced one version holding a blank journal. "This is your last chance," the mirror alien said. "Forget everything and live in peace. Or remember, and destroy everything." Alien opened his real journal and wrote one final line, "I choose to remember, even if it kills me." The world shattered like glass. He woke up on the bus, the book still on his lap, but now finished. He flipped to the last page. It read, "Welcome back, Alien. Valoria lives only in those who forget. But as long as you remember, you're free." He looked around. Everyone else on the bus was asleep. The driver wore silver-rimmed spectacles, and in Alien's pocket, the cracked pocket watch ticked once, then fell silent. It was the lake that gave it away. He saw an old woman walking into the lake at twilight. When he tried to stop her, she smiled and said, "It's okay, child. I'm full." Then she disappeared into the water without a sound. The next day, Elian saw a young boy in her place, playing by the market fountain. Identical face, younger body. The townspeople didn't just live forever. They recycled. Each time someone lost all their memories, they were reborn into a younger version of themselves, still trapped in Valoria, starting again, like pages turning backward in a cursed book. The lake was the reset. The journal was his only anchor point. One night the little girl from his dream appeared in real life. "You're resisting," she said, her voice echoing like wind through trees. "That's why they can't erase you yet. Why me?" Elian asked. "Because you wrote your truth. Ink binds memory. That's the key." She gave him the cracked pocket watch. "Time doesn't live here anymore," she whispered, "but it remembers who stole it." Elian finally understood. Valoria was not a town. It was a prison, built by a forgotten god who harvested the memories of souls to sustain his immortality. Every smile, every routine, every blank book, were rituals to keep the god asleep. But Elian's writing, his memory, his resistance, were waking it. He had two choices, run and forget, or stay and remember. He chose the latter. Elian began teaching others to write. Quietly, secretly. They wrote on stones, on tree bark, on their own skin. And with every word, Valoria trembled. The skies lost their color. The lake dried. The people began remembering, and then the god woke. It rose from the town square in the form of a colossal eye, hovering above the bell tower. The eye blinked, and buildings aged 1,000 years. Trees burst into ash. Elian ran to the mirror maze, now appearing where the lake once stood. It was the only way out, but also the final test. In a valley cloaked in perpetual twilight, nestled between two forgotten mountains, there existed a town that never appeared on any map, a town called Valoria. No satellite ever detected it. No traveler ever stumbled upon it. It simply was. Valoria was a place where clocks had no hands, calendars had no pages, and people had no memories of yesterday or hopes for tomorrow. They lived each day the same way, in peace, in silence, unaware that time had forgotten them. Then came Elian. He didn't remember how he got there. One moment he was on a bus, dozing off while reading a worn-out fantasy novel. The next he was waking up in a velvet field under a sky that shimmered like an oil painting. His phone was dead. His watch had stopped. And yet he wasn't afraid, just confused. He walked toward the only visible structure, a wooden archway that read, "Welcome to Valoria." The people greeted him kindly, but their smiles were strange. Empty. Their eyes didn't match their words. He noticed that no one asked him where he came from. No one questioned his presence. And that night, when he asked what day it was, a man with silver-rimmed spectacles laughed and said, "Oh, we don't bother with days here. It's always now." That first night, Elian dreamed. In his dream, he was running through a mirror maze. Every reflection was slightly different. One was older, one younger, one bleeding from the eyes, one laughing maniacally. At the end of the maze stood a little girl with a cracked pocket watch. She looked up and whispered, "If they make you forget, they win." He woke up screaming. But no one reacted. In Valoria, no one ever reacted to screams. As days passed, or what felt like days, Elian began to change. He started forgetting simple things, his favorite book, his sister's name, his birthday. He wrote everything down in a leather-bound journal he found in the town's library, which was filled with blank books. The more he wrote, the more he noticed the truth. The town was feeding on memory.